Like every other joint replacement, the total elbow replacement has its own share of complications. Um, and it's mainly because, unfortunately, the rate of complications is much higher than the other joint replacements, mainly because the soft tissue cover around the elbow is not as good as the other joints. There are major neurovascular structures in the close vicinity, and normally there's a long learning curve to be a good elbow arthroplasty surgeon because it's a low volume procedure. I do not know about numbers in the India, but in UK, even the major centers does around 10 to 15 elbow replacement in a year, and that is considered a good number. This is a sort of a meta-analysis of a little while ago of the complications in the elbow replacement, and you can see that there is a total about 43% of various different kind of complications collected from more than 800 cases over a period of 6 years. Since then, the results of the elbow replacement has improved because of the advancement in the prosthetic design and material, and the constraints designs have disappeared, and now most of the designs are unconstrained or semi-constrained. Surgeons have gained more experience, so the surgical technique have improved. And as mentioned by several speakers, the to deal with the triceps tendon, techniques have changed. So the tricep related complications are less. And also, obviously, the cementing techniques have improved. In the later analysis from Mayo Clinic, this is of 1981 cases, and you can see the rate of complications has come down, but still the elbow replacement has a disproportionately large number of complications as compared to the other joints. The fractures of the condyle is one of the common complication in the elbow replacement, and it is either because the bone stock is quite poor, or during the surgical technique there has been either an excessive reaming, eccentric reaming, or sometimes the over enthusiastic pushing of the larger trials as compared to the cuts that have been made into the canal, or sometimes when you're cutting the distal humerus, then the direction of the saw is not right. If you're doing a uh, linked implant, then normally you can ignore it. Even in the unlinked implant, because their stems are well fixed, so most of the time the fractures of the condyles can be just left as such. Very rarely you would have to do anything about it. But if there is a fracture of the humeral shaft, then you have to do something about it. This is one of my patient who, when I was doing a replacement, then the shaft fractured, and then I could sort of fix it with the Delmile cables, and after that could complete the procedure. The second picture is 6 months down after the operation, and this elbow replacement has done quite well, and the fracture has not made any difference in the outcome of the elbow replacement. Uh, as mentioned by Ashish and other speakers there, the perforation of the ulna is also not uncommon because it's a quite hard cortical bone with a small medullary canal. And as we all know, the reamers of the original Cunard-Moret system are not very user-friendly, and it's quite easy to perforate the ulna. With the newer implant systems where they have the cannulated flexi-reamers, the incidence of this has become less. Now, sometimes if you can find out that ulna has had a hole before putting an implant, then you need to make sure that you can stop the cement extrusion as much as possible. I remember once one of my senior colleague was helping me, and he had long fingers. So I asked him with using his finger to block the hole, and then we could implant the ulna without much problem. And if the cement has extruded and you know it during the surgery, then try to excise it as much as possible. But if you know about the cement extrusion after the surgery, then the main thing is to wait and watch. And if it's a problem is there, and if suppose the situation is like this on the lower X-ray on the right side, that the ulnar stem has actually gone out of the ulna completely. And this is one of my case. And I did not realize it during surgery, but only after post-operative X-ray. And then obviously the only option is to go back and do the revision. The ulnar nerve damage probably has been reported much less than what it is actually there. And the incidences has been reported from 2 to 26%. And the damage, ulnar nerve damage, varies from uh, transient paresthesia to a profound neuropathy, although the incidence of neuropathy is much less, and the reason for it can be several, as several speakers have mentioned. And I also, I mean, Bernie told me when I was spending time with him in 10 years ago, that when you dissect the ulnar nerve, then never put a clip on this tie there, just put a tie there, because during the surgery, the clip can be entangled into the drapes and you would never know it. And there would be traction on the nerve. The other regions of the ulnar nerve damage can be either the hematoma, direct mechanical pressure, tight bandages, or sometimes the thermal damage from the bone cement. The transposition of the ulnar nerve, again, people have different views about it. Although in the same meta-analysis from the Mayo Grip, they showed that it was clinically beneficial to transpose the ulnar nerve, although statistically not significant. And the reason is that if it's a limited flexion elbow there, then when the elbow is flexed post-operatively, then the stretch of the ulnar nerve would be reduced. The people who are of the contrary view, they think that by transposing the ulnar nerve, you're compromising the blood supply. So one has to decide whatever is their choice is there. The wound healing problems are not uncommon after total elbow replacement. Again, because the skin cover around the elbow is quite thin, and especially if the skin is vulnerable, like in the rheumatoid patient. So a careful soft tissue dissection is absolutely vital, and one need to take a thick skin flaps. And the some of the people use the sticky protective drapes like Ioban, but the incidence of the soft tissue damage may increase with that. Good hemostasis obviously is important. And postoperatively, now many people splint the elbow in full extension, same that I do, and as also some speakers has mentioned. The range of the movement can be started once you're happy with the skin. And if you feel that skin is still fragile after a few days, then there is no harm in postponing the range of movements. And sometimes a POP slab may be useful if the skin is not healthy. And rarely, if the soft, if these skin damage is quite severe, and the the implant is exposed or something else is there, you might require further surgery there. The uh, stiffness in the elbow replacement can happen. It is very rare for after elbow replacement to get the full range of movement. And as had already been mentioned, it is quite common to have some degree of the extension deficit. The idea of the elbow replacement is to gain a functional range of movement, that is from about 30 to 130 degree of flexion. If you get the full extension, that is a bonus. It is common to have the fixed flexion deformity in the osteoarthritis or the ankylosing type of rheumatoid arthritis. And in such situations, it is important while doing surgery to do an aggressive capsulectomy and the release. And as Ashish mentioned just now, it would be very important not to make the components very tight fit. So just like in a hip replacement, you do a telescoping and you don't make the hip replacement very tight. Similarly, in the elbows, you need to make sure that especially the humerus component is fully in, and you can easily and fully flex it. And I've always seen it, and I believe it, that keeping the component slightly loose actually always give a better range of movement. If it happens, the stiffness, then you might require the prolonged physiotherapy and dynamic splinting later. And if unfortunately the HO is the cause of the stiffness, it may require further surgery. The tricep insufficiency, again, is more and more people are getting aware of it, but it also has been underreported. And the incidences reported incidences are about 2 to 3%, but probably the incidences are much more than that. Sometimes the tendon is poor, just like in rheumatoid people, but uh, quite a few times the triceps weakness depend upon the dissection technique you use for the triceps. And we have seen all different kind of triceps approaches today. The triceps on, the triceps off, the turn down, the reflecting approaches there. The the There is some evidence to show that the tricep on approaches, and including the tricep turn down approaches, they are better in terms of triceps insufficiency. And as we just saw in the voting earlier, that more and more people are switching to these approaches. The heterotopic ossification is not very common, but it can happen, especially in the osteoarthritic cases or after acute trauma. And sometimes it can limit the range of movement significantly. And this is one of my patients. The top picture is the pre-op picture, and the second picture is the post-op picture. I operated him about 2 to 3 months ago. He's gaining a good range of movement. Obviously, I would not expect the full range of movement here. And I also send him for the radiotherapy. I do not know how much does it help, but the heterotopic ossification, if it causes the stiffness and significant restriction of movement, may require surgical treatment. The stem failure of the ulna or humerus is not very common. This is not my case. I haven't experienced it so far. I've taken it from the literature. And normally it only happens when the patient starts using his arm in almost near normal activities, which in fact is a proof of the success of the operation, and which possibly would happen after traumatic arthritis. And if that happens, obviously it would require revision. Now, the failure of articulation can happen. Now, this is again one of my patients who had a quite good elbow replacement, and suddenly after a month after the surgery, he ended up like that. And I was completely perplexed how that has happened. And then I went back to immediate post-op X-ray, and then I realized that I missed that here. If you see this X-ray there, that the pin which is in the Kundan, what a pin within pin mechanism. So this pin has not been completely engaged. So it has nothing to do with the implant. It was a surgical failure. So if you are using this implant, make sure that the pin within pin mechanism is fully engaged. Otherwise, this complication is very rare. The bushing bear, because all these implants normally have some polyethylene bushes between the metal humeral and ulnar components, and these bushes can wear in the long surviving implants, or if there is instability, or because of the arthritis, the patient is putting a lot of stress onto the elbow. The small amount of wear does not require anything, but normally it can go on worsening. And so it is better to sort it out. And normally it would only require the change of the bushes there. If the wear is quite severe, it might give a osteolysis and losing the implant. The instability after elbow replacement is mainly a problem of the unlinked implant. Although the current unlinked implant are quite almost semi-constrained, but sometimes it can happen. And in the resurfacing implant, the incidence is about 5 to 10%, but not everyone requires revision surgery. After that, only about 20% of these may require surgery. Rest may settle with the non-operative treatment. And since, as I just heard in India, the people use the linked implant because that is only available, so it should not be a problem here. The septic or aseptic loosening, like other joint replacements, remains a problem in the elbow. The incidences are reducing, but still it is quite high as compared to other joint replacement. The infection rate of 2.5% in the elbow replacement is also higher as compared to hips and knee replacement. The three factors which are important in the loosening are the biomechanics, the implant design, and the surgical technique. And the last one, the surgical technique, can be controlled by the surgeon. So a meticulous surgical technique, including cementing, would help in reducing the incidence of these loosening. And obviously, if the surgeon had chosen an implant wisely, which has got a good track record and long follow-up, then the incidence of this complication would be less. The all patients of the loosening does not require surgery. This is one of my patients, is an elderly woman in his 70s, and she's living with this implant for last 5 years. Every 6 months she comes to me with the intention of getting it revised, but when I inform her about the complication, she just chicken out, and she just say, doctor, I'm happy using the brace to this my elbow, and so far it is working okay. So not all the loosening requires revision, but sometimes the if the loosening becomes painful and it's dysfunctional and it makes the use of the elbow difficult, then obviously revision would be required. And the all the established principles of revision of other joints would be followed, should be followed. And I think in the elbow, the options would be either you just remove the implant or do a full revision, or in a very rare cases, the arthrodesis also would be an option there. And in the end, there are some common sense things which people need to remember who do the elbow replacement. I often ask that what is the most important quality of a surgeon? And in my view, it is to know when not to operate rather than to operate. So you need to select your patient very carefully. The patient need to know all the limitations after the elbow replacement in terms of the use, the limitations of how much weight they can lift. And through the preoperative assessment, you need to see if there is any contraindications for elbow replacement. Does the patient understands the post-op rehabilitation well? Is there anything else that you need? Suppose there is a previous metal, is the metal of the fixation is there? Is there a bone is quite osteoporotic? There's a lot of wear is there? A previous shoulder replacement is there? So you need to do a full thorough pre-op assessment and need to have a full set of equipments and implants. And during the Coonrod More, it is not uncommon to drop the pin while linking the implant. So I always make sure that I have an extra set of pin available just in case I drop it. Sometimes the people just, observe someone, see a video and start and think that they can do an elbow replacement. You won't have any fun like that. And if you think that you have not enough experience, there is no harm in asking a senior colleague to come with you. You should not cut corners, and a meticulous surgical technique is a very, very important. And same is the good post-operative management. Practice makes perfect. The more you do, the better it is. And in the UK, this word is very buzzword right now, getting it right first time. And that is very true for the elbow replacement also. Thank you very much.